Grace and peace to you from God our Father and from our Lord Jesus Christ, and welcome to this episode of the Ministry Exchange with Dr. Mapson. This podcast is designed to help equip pastors and leaders in the church for more effective ministry in our contemporary society by recognizing the tradition that has brought us, but also recognizing the need to serve this present age. We are delighted today to welcome to our podcast a dear friend of many years who is the senior pastor of First Church of God in Columbus, Ohio, Bishop Timothy J. Clarke, who pastors one of the influential churches not only in the city of Columbus, but in his denomination and in the nation as well. He is the founder and chief prelate of the Berean Fellowship, which is an assembly that seeks to mentor small to mid-sized churches as well as new pastors. He is the recipient of many honorary degrees, and he has been inducted into the Morehouse College Board of Preachers, yes, which is a great honor because it is Morehouse College, of course. He's the author of several books, including Bind Up Your Broken Heart and Celebrating the Family, and he is also the former president and vice president and current chairman of the General Assembly of the Church of God. Welcome, Bishop Clarke, and we will try to call each other Bishop and Doctor, even though it's Jesse, right, and Tim.
That's what I like.
That's what I like the most.
Yes, sir.
Most as well. Again, welcome, and yet I do want to begin with the story of our coming together for that trip in New York.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, let me first of all say Dr. Mapson, and that may be the last time I use the official title.
Yeah.
But let me just say how excited and delighted I am, not just to be on the podcast in the official capacity, but just how excited I am that I get to be with you and that I get to sit here and to share with you, certainly with your son, my nephew, and all that the two of you are doing to broaden the world of ministry. And I want to say this, it isn't just for young pastors. Quite a few of us long in the truth pastors watch this podcast too, and we're being blessed by it. So thank you for the honor of being here where so many sages have already sat and shared with you, but also for the honor of being your friend and your brother for this fellowship. You mentioned what brought us together, and we were laughing on the way here about our friendship and brotherhood with the late Dr. Charles Edward Booth.
Absolutely.
And we always say when the two of us talk that Booth was the glue that not only bound us together, but brought many of us together.
Right.
All of us met because of the broad reach of Charles Edward Booth.
Absolutely.
And that's how you and I connected. Now, I knew of you before I met you, sort of like the scripture, I had heard of you in the hearing of the ear, and then my eyes beheld you. Because Booth talked about you in such glowing terms.
Yeah.
You were there in Elizabeth at that time, and he always talked about your great friendship and brotherhood. You would actually come, I don't know if you remember this, you would come to preach his anniversary,
Right.
in January.
That's right.
And that
Cold January.
Oh, it was a cold January.
Cold
And
Columbus.
listen, there's only you can get cold in Columbus in January. And Bishop Ross was preaching that afternoon.
Right.
They had asked me to come be a surprised speaker to pay tribute to him. And so I came that afternoon. In the office later, you, Booth, and I were talking, and we were planning to go to Dr. Leslie Wainwright's funeral the next day in Harlem.
Right.
And you were leaving, so we were on. Wasn't it People's Airline we were on?
Yes.
It was People's Airline,
Yes.
which no longer exists.
Yes. $49 special.
Yes, sir. And we all flew together to Newark Airport. You drove us over to Harlem. I will never forget this.
Yes.
Booth was on the program.
Right.
You and I sat in the balcony.
Sat in the balcony.
The peon seats. And you leaned over to me and said, our brother's on the program. And we sat together in the service. Later, we walked over to Sylvia's.
Yes.
Had smothered pork chops.
Smothered pork.
Oh, my goodness. And then we went to see my mother, who, of course, lived in Manhattan.
Right.
She worked at Columbia University School of Social Work. We went to Riverside, Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and Grant's Tomb.
Right. Right.
And then we drove back over to Elizabeth. We went, now you may not remember this part of the story. We went to your mom and dad's house and I sat on the floor. You and Booth, I think, sat on the couch, and your dad regaled us with stories of his early ministry.
Yeah.
We left there and went to a soul food restaurant.
Went to Stewart's.
Stewart's
in Newark.
Yeah. And then from there, you took us to the airport. And to this day, that is still one of the seminal days of my life. I can recount it all. I can replay it almost moment by moment, from getting to the airport, flying to Newark, driving over the George Washington Bridge, and spending the day together. What a day it was. And that cemented that trio between you, Booth, and I.
Yeah.
And by God's grace, it has lasted until this day, even though Booth no longer walks among us. His legacy still lives in our hearts and in our lives.
Absolutely. And we can't be together 3 or 4 minutes without, and we could talk about him for 2 days straight, if not long.
Yes, sir. If not long.
If not.
Yes, sir.
If
we
not
could
long.
Regale each other with Booth stories.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Well, again, it is such a pleasure for me to have you on this podcast. Let's begin talking about your early ministry. Being raised in New York.
Yes, sir.
What was it like in terms of the call? Because again, the call is so important in the Black church experience.
Yes, sir.
You can't go out there without being able to articulate a call.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Your conversion, of course, that's first thing, but next is the call to ministry. What was that like? And then we'll kind of go from there, from there to Ohio.
Yes, sir.
And how you got there. Because I want to also ask about the denomination.
Yes, sir.
And I think the marvelous thing about our friendships, they transcend denominations. I mean, it never comes up.
Never a fact.
Never a fact.
No, sir.
Never a fact.
Sir. No.
But I want to talk about that because I think we need to know a little bit more about the Church of God, because we always want to talk about Church of God in Christ.
Yes, sir.
Which is not the same. But
not the same.
Those beginnings in New York.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Interesting story, and I will try to make it as brief as possible because I know there's a lot of ground we want to cover. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I say this, and I'm very mindful of how it comes across, but I do think it's part of my story and it's important. My mom and dad were not married. They were never married. Mm-hmm. So when my older sister and I were born, our mother and father were not married. My mother grew up in the Church of God. Our great-grandparents were some of the founders of our home church, and our grandparents were very active. Thus, my mother and two aunts, her two sisters, grew up in that church and were involved in ministry. My mother served as president of the state youth for the Church of God. She met my dad. She met our dad and fell in love with him. And out of that came my sister and I. And when I turned 18, my mother wrote me a letter on my birthday, March 30th, when I turned 18. And she said in this letter, and to this moment, I can still see her writing and I can see every word. She said to me, "Today is your 18th birthday, and there's some things I want to share with you." And she started talking about she and our dad and how they came to know each other and how she felt she had disappointed her parents and the saints when she became pregnant out of wedlock. And she said to me, she said, "When I had your sister Pam, I thought maybe your dad would marry me, but he didn't. And when I found out I was pregnant with you," and Jesse, this touches me to this moment. She said, "I asked God to give me a son because I thought," my father was West Indian. He was from Trinidad. She said, "I thought that if I gave him a son, that would make him love me and marry me. And I told God, if you give me a son, I will give him back to you." And then she said, I can see the line. She said, "That is why I named you Timothy, because Timothy means honoring God. I gave you to God in my womb." And she said, "Even though your dad and I never got married, I never took back what I said to God." And I'm saying that to say that that formed and forged so much of my life. And it helped me understand how, from the earliest moment of my life, when you're cognizant that you are going to be something in life. I always knew, Jesse, I was going to be a preacher, but I could never understand it until my 18th birthday when I read that. I just knew, as the old folks would say, in my knower, I just knew I was going to be a preacher. There's never been a conscious moment when I didn't know that. But then there has to be that moment of call, of clarity. And I remember reading a book. I think it's not the autobiography, it's the biography of the late Dr. William Holmes Borders. You know him from your days at Morehouse at Wheat Street Church there in Atlanta. And it was, I think the first edition was called Handyman of the Lord. And in that book, around the first or second chapter, Dr. Borders relates his call. And he said there were no shooting stars. There were no claps or peals of thunder. There was no audible voice. There was just a knowledge and awareness that God wanted to use me. And I can't tell you how reading that solidified and concretized my sense of call. It was affirmation because I had heard the old preachers talking about all this dramatics.
Absolutely.
And I didn't have any of that. But then I look back when I read that letter from my mom, that sense of awareness and assurance that God wanted to use me, that his hand was on me. That's what solidified the call for me. And I have never, and it's hard to say it, I've been preaching 50 some years now. I've never doubted. There have been times I've doubted almost everything in my life. I have never doubted my call. Never.
And I think the journey, our journey has been similar in the fact that I don't have a story of running, or you got to slap me a few times before, or not wanting to preach. I think I've always wanted to do that.
Yes, sir.
But for me, being a preacher's son, I didn't want to preach because it was expected.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Right. And because people will say to a preacher's kid, like they say to my boys, you're going to be a preacher like your daddy.
Yes.
Right. And so I went to Morehouse unsure, wanting to, but waiting for the call.
Yes.
And it was in my dormitory room one night when my two roommates were out. And I'm praying, every night for God to tell me something. Otherwise I was going to go into teaching or music. And one particular night, I got on my knees, and when I got up, there was this sense of calm, like this. For me, that was the call. It was no thunder and lightning, anything like that. But that same thing is something that I felt was always in me, even in moments when I thought I wanted to rebel.
Yes, sir.
But it was there.
It's so funny you said that, because I used to think, because I would hear preachers say, I ran from the call, and I would say, what's wrong with me? Because I was running to the
calling.
run into it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe I need to rebel a little bit. But there was nothing in me that wanted to do that.
Yeah.
There was this awareness, God's hand. And that's why my mother's letter was so helpful to me.
Yeah.
Because I never could fully understand it, that there was something different about me as a kid. I loved church.
Yeah.
I loved preachers
So did
and
I.
preaching.
So did I.
Listen, don't tell anybody. This is just between you and I grew up in Far Rockaway, right? So 2109 Namioke Street is where I grew up. First Baptist Church was right across the street from my house, 1510 Redfern Avenue. The Reverend Dr. H. Oliver Scott Sr., D.D., was the pastor. Our church, First Church of God, was 1425 Beach Channel Drive, and then H. Kelly Temple Church of God in Christ, 1801 Redfern Avenue, was this way. So it's almost a triangle, and Bethel AME Church on the corner of Redfern Avenue and Beach 11 was right up the street. I would pass by one of those churches, and if I saw a hearse outside, I'd go in there just to hear the preacher preach the eulogy. I didn't have to know who it was. That's how drawn I was to church and to preaching. I look back now and say, you were a weird kid.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in church. And I wanted to hear preaching all of my life.
Yeah. Talk about your mentors, because one of the things I believe is that when we stand, we stand with other voices that are speaking also. Who were those voices for you?
One of my mentors biblically is the prophet Amos. And here is why. In his autobiographical statement early on in the book, Amos says, I was not a prophet, nor the son of a prophet. I was a dresser of sycamore trees. And then this great line, and the Lord took me. And when I first read that, I thought, that's me. I'm not a son of a prophet. I'm not the grandson of a preacher. The Lord took me. But one of the things the Lord did for me was give me men in my life who were mentors and spiritual fathers, starting with my childhood pastor, the Reverend Dr. James Eula Cray. Dad pastored our church from 1947 to 1977. And my grandfather served as chair of the trustee board of that church. Dad was a young man when he came there, and Grandpa took him under his wing. Dad would always say, but Bailey would always look out for me. My grandmother would cook for him. He loved fish. And I think that's why I love fish to this day. My grandmother would fry fish for him, and he'd come to the house and eat. My mother would type correspondence for him. So when our grandfather died, August of 1962, Dad really out of love for our grandfather, took me under his wing. And he really became my dad in every sense of the word. But there was also Dr. Scott, Pop Scott at First Baptist, Elder Kelly, Pop Kelly at H. Kelly Temple Church of God in Christ, Dr. William Aaron at Congregational Church of God in Harlem, Dr. Evans Bromley Marshall at Lafayette Avenue Church of God. Those men mentored me. But now here's what you got to remember. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying it's just the facts in the words of Joe Friday. I grew up in New York City in the days of the royalty of the pulpit. Booth and I used to laugh about this. On any given Sunday in New York, up in Harlem, in Brooklyn, in Rockaway, we had the subway system. And on any given Sunday, you could see a nation coming up out the ground, going to their churches. On any given Sunday. So in Rockaway, you had Dad and Pop Scott, Pop Kelly, Pop Leith. They were preaching every Sunday. Over in Jamaica, you had at Calvary Baptist Church, Dr. Walter Stockholm Penn. At Amity, you had Dr. James R. Moore. At Allen, where our brother Floyd Flake was, you had Bishop Donald Ming. At that time, he was Dr. Ming. You go to Brooklyn.
Oh, Brooklyn. Don't go to Brooklyn.
Don't go to Brooklyn. You had Dr. Sandy Frederick Ray, Dr. William Augustus Jones, Dr. Gardner Calvin Taylor, Dr. Robert Alexander Laws, Dr. Hilton Lancaster James, Bishop F.D. Washington. You had a plethora of the greatest Black preaching ever assembled. Up in Harlem, you had Oakley Maxwell. You had Adam Clayton Powell Jr. You later had Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. Dr. Connie Stamps was at Metropolitan.
That's right.
My God. So I was breathing the air that had been saturated with the preaching voices of those giants. And I got to know them and be around them. And because I was craze boy, that's what they would call you. That's craze boy. They always let me in because of their love for Dad and their respect for him.
And it was transcended denomination because you're listening to voices which may not have always been accepted in some circles, but you were able to listen to all these voices that fed into you.
Over at Refuge Temple in Harlem, you had Bishop Willie Lee Bonner. And I mean, Bishop Bonner was one of the greatest preaching voices you ever want to hear. You had Roy Brown and Huey Rogers. So you had Apostolic, Church of God in Christ, Baptist and Methodist, Alfred Dunstan of the AME Zion.
AME Zion,
Now. So how could you not preach?
Right.
With all that preaching going on around you. Yes, sir.
Take us from New York to Ohio. Was it an appointment, or how does that process work?
It's a great story. And I tell people this now, I can say it now more publicly. I believe that the only church I was meant to pastor is First Church Columbus, where I've been for 43 years. But I spent 4 years in Warren, Ohio, and God blessed it. And let me tell you why God blessed it, because I was obedient. Here's the story. I got married April 2nd, 1977. Around June or July, Dad said to me, he said, Tim, I've got to go to Warren, but I don't feel up to doing a whole revival. I want you to go with me. You preach. I'll teach every night from 6 to 7, but I want you to preach. I just don't feel up to preaching every night. So what do? You say yes, as in those days, the word of your pastor was the word of the Lord.
And they could do that. They could
do it. So that's what we did. Because that's back when revivals would start Sunday morning, go through Friday night. Right? You're going to be there a while. About Wednesday night, Dad said to me, he said, I think these people like you. I said, I like them too. You ever been to Warren? Okay, there you go. So I said, I like them too, and I'm ready to go home to my new wife, right? So he said, okay. He said, but I think they like you. We went home. I laugh about it now. And about a month or so later, he said, they want you. I want you to go to Warren. Jesse,
Leave New York and go.
dumb me, left New York. Went to Warren, Ohio with a brand new wife because Dad said so.
Yeah.
And God blessed that church. It grew. We paid the mortgage. We bought a parsonage. We did a bunch of things there, did ministry. In 4 years, God blessed it. But I don't believe it was God's perfect will for my life. God honored my obedience to my spiritual father. This generation doesn't know that. They don't know what that's like. I didn't want to go.
Yeah.
I didn't ask to go. He told me to go. Here's what was funny. It hit me about 20 years later. He got in his Cadillac and went back to New York and left my hips in Warren. But he told me to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent 4 years there. And that's when the Lord sent me to Columbus, Ohio. And I believe in all my heart that is the only church that was for me to pastor, but God honored my obedience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in honoring that obedience, that Warren experience had to prepare you to some degree.
My Lord, yes, sir. Listen, I tease people and say, I got my my education and training in the real world in Warren, Ohio.
Yeah.
And it prepared me for Columbus.
Yeah.
And a lot of the growth and what have you that people see is foundational and was formed and forged both in Rockaway and in Warren.
Yeah.
And you can't appreciate Columbus
Right.
without knowing those
Right.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't.
You've got to get there.
Yes.
Taking steps.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. There's no quantum leap. And I think, and this is not to disparage, because I think sometimes those of us who are not getting up there at age,
Yeah.
we've got to be very, very careful. We don't disparage those coming behind us.
Absolutely.
And in some ways become caustic and critical because they're ambitious or desirous of things. But I think one thing that they're mistaken about is that there are quantum leaps in ministry. And it's what you just said. It's step by step.
Yeah.
It's step.
And they're mentors
Yes.
that teach and
Yes.
and pour into you that
Yes.
you have to be willing to receive.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
In fact, when I talk about Dad and I talk about Pop Scott and Pop Kelly, it wasn't until I sat down and really began to be reflective about it, I picked up something from all of them. From Dad, I picked up pastoring. And to this day, I often think of this, as large as First Church is, I can't get away from pastoring.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. It's just in me. From Pop Kelly, I picked up the life of prayer and consecration. He would do shut-ins at H. Kelly Temple Church Garden Christ. His son Joshua and Joshua Pastor Kelly, just retired as my executive pastor. We actually grew up together talking about working and pastoring together, and for 21 years he served as my executive pastor. We would take Pop hot tea, change of clothes, because he would shut in at the church for a week in prayer. So I learned prayer. From Pop Scott at First Baptist, I learned preaching. Each of those men poured something into my life that impacted my ministry even to this day.
Yeah.
Pastoring, praying, preaching.
Because you may not get them all from the same persons.
Very seldom.
Very seldom.
Jesse, you know this. Very seldom are all those things in one person.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about personal loss.
Yeah.
If you can, and to help us, because we're always helping others.
Yes, sir.
And ministering to others, encouraging others, being strong for our members as well as our families.
Yes, sir.
But we too are part of the human experience, and when there was no rain, there was no rain for the prophet either, until the Lord provided.
There you go. Right, you go.
Provided.
There you go.
Yeah.
We preach within the context of our reality. And I think sometimes we forget that we preached through the pandemic, and the pandemic was as real for us as it was for those we were preaching.
Absolutely.
It's what Henry Nouwen calls being wounded healers. I forget, one of the fathers, not one of the fathers we know, but the desert fathers,
Yeah.
the monastic fathers. One of them said that, and it might even have been Spurgeon, more current, who said, before God uses a person greatly, he first hurts them deeply.
Mm.
You've heard Dr. Taylor tell that story about the time when a friend of his asked him to go hear a singer at the Metropolitan Opera. He said they got on the subway, went downtown, heard this young lady sing, and on the way back, Dr. Taylor's friend said, "Wasn't she great?" Dr. Taylor said, "Oh, she was very good." And Dr. Taylor, the man turned and said, "What did you say?" Dr. Taylor said, "She was very good." He said, "Did you hear her range, her vocality? Did you hear how she could throw her voice? Did you hear her?" Dr. Taylor said, "Yes, I heard her. She was very good." The man said, "Gardner, she's not good. She's great." And Dr. Taylor said, "No, she's very good. She'll be great when life hurts her. You can't be great until life hurts you."
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same is true of preaching.
Absolutely.
I don't think, Jesse, we can preach without a tear, without some pain in our hearts. For me, it started August 1962 when my grandfather died.
Yeah.
He was the patriarch of our family. He was the father figure for me. Later it was my aunt, who was the organist of our church, who would walk from her house, 1505 Beach 11th Street, come to 2109 Namayoke, pick me up, take me to church. And she died of cancer. She never got to hear me preach, but I stayed in the church because of her. Then later, my grandmother, who was not just our matriarch, but her house was where all of the children of her 3 daughters were reared. We all lived in grandma's house. She passed and never heard me preach. And that began a succession of losses in my life. Our mother passed away from cancer in 1988. That was in February. Mom Cray, Dad Cray's wife, died August of 1988. And then that was followed by the death of our youngest sister, Josephine. And then Dad Cray passed. And then Dad Cray, Pop Scott, Pop Kelly. I lost all of my mentors, all of my spiritual fathers in that season. The worst one, though, Jess, you already know this, was January 2nd, 2019, when our firstborn, Dee Dee, passed away at the age of 40, unexpected. Just got sick on Saturday, and on Tuesday she was gone. And there is nothing that prepares you for the death of a child.
Absolutely.
I woke up Wednesday morning at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I laid in the dark, not wanting to wake Claire. And it hit me that if I lived to be 100, it would hurt me as much at 100 as it did that morning. It is the pain that never goes away.
Yeah.
It's always right beneath the surface. I can hear a song, I can see her picture, or look at her daughter,
Yeah.
and all of that will start coming back to me because it's not normal.
Right.
Your
Right.
children bury you.
Right.
You don't bury your children.
Right.
You
Right.
don't.
Yeah.
So I've lived with loss, but Dee Dee's death gave me a limp, and I've been limping ever since. Yeah, it's hard to explain.
Sure. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a grief that is revisited over and over again.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And then how did that translate, that pain in her translate into a new season of preaching and then the writings? Yeah. Because it seemed that you used that to continue to heal by ministering and helping us through that.
Yes, sir. I remember years ago. Did you ever hear of a man named Mal Good, who was worked for ABC, one of the first Black newscasters? Worked for, I believe it was ABC, and his wife, Sister Mary Good, was a member of the church that my wife Clarke grew up in. And I remember one year I had taken ill, and she wrote me a letter, and in it she put a little pamphlet entitled, "Don't Waste Your Suffering." And in that pamphlet, it talked about how when God sends or allows suffering in our lives, there was always something we learn or gain from it that, if properly received, we can then use it if we don't waste it. And so even with Dee's death, I wanted to find that kernel of something that I could use, not just for me, but through my preaching and pastoring, to help others. You know, John Maxwell says, if you drop something, while you're down there, pick up something else. Don't just pick up what you dropped. There's probably something else down there too.
Yeah.
So when you get back up, you get up with more than what you dropped down there. I wanted to pick up something while I was down, and I wanted to use it. And so my preaching has become much more, and you'll understand this with your mom and your dad and the various losses you've had. It is not just more pastoral. It has more pathos in it.
Absolutely. This episode of the Ministry Exchange is brought to you by our partner, Terry Funeral Home, Incorporated. For over 85 years, they've served families in the Philadelphia area with care, compassion, and consistency. Under the leadership of Gregory T. Burrell, Terry Funeral Home has become a trusted name, offering guidance and support when it's needed the most. So whether you're facing the difficult task of planning ahead or navigating the grief of a recent loss, Terry Funeral Home provides the kind of support that eases the burden with dignity, clarity, and compassion when families need it the most. To find out how they can serve your family with care and confidence, visit terryfuneralhome.com. And thank you.
It really does. 2019 was a heck of a year for me. We lost Dee Dee in January. Right after that, I went to the doctor for my checkup. She sent me to my cardiologist, and he said, you need a pacemaker. So I had a pacemaker put in. That was February. Our brother died.
March. Yeah.
Doc, I don't know how I make it through here.
Yes. Yes.
It was a year like no other. The grief that I felt, it came like wave upon wave upon wave for me.
Yeah.
And then I got out of 2019 and I thought, okay, New Year's Eve night, I'm thinking, okay, God got me through it. And then what happens? The pandemic.
The pandemic.
And I've got to pivot all over again.
Joe's
Kind of like, listen, I wanted to change my name. It already was Jay. I wanted to change it from Joseph to Joseph. But through it all, I learned things about God. My devotional life deepened. More became real than theoretical.
Mm-hmm.
It was experiential. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. But thanks for sharing that. That's, like you said, the pain is always there. Sure, always there. 3 F's of ministry, frustration, fatigue, fear.
So,
You know, in going to Columbus and what you've been able to build with the help of God, how it probably unimaginable in the beginning. I mean, and God has done. What do you think about how that happened and how God used you to preside over, and not only in your denomination, but a church of that has been made,
yes,
what it is. And I think we should give ourselves credit in terms of leadership, even though we know God is working through us, but might not have happened if you weren't there.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
if we're not in the places where we are,
Yes.
would it have happened?
I was teaching at Clarke yesterday to the pastor's division, and I quoted something by E.M. Bounds that is often misunderstood, so I'm very careful where I quote it. But in one of his books on prayer, Dr. Bounds makes this statement: God does not anoint machines, he anoints men. We would now add women. This was written back in the 20s.
Yeah.
So it was a very patriarchal culture. God doesn't anoint machines, he anoints men. He anoints women, he anoints people. That statement was fine. The next statement was one I had to wrestle with. He said, and God doesn't bless churches. He blesses a pastor, and through the pastor, the church is blessed. And at first, everything in me, out of humility, that ain't
That's right. Yeah.
I tell my church every Wednesday, pray God bless First Church. He said, God doesn't bless churches. He blesses a pastor. And through that pastor, the church is blessed. The more I thought about it and looked at life, it's true.
It is true.
It's why one pastor can be at a church 15, 20 years, minimal, nominal growth.
Yeah.
Another pastor can come and the church explodes.
Yeah.
Same church,
Yeah.
same address, same people.
Right.
But the right person comes.
Yeah. Right.
And God blesses that church through that pastor. So you're absolutely right. It is that tension between humility, but also recognizing the hand of God on a person's life, on the pastor's life, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
When I went to First Church 43 years ago, there were less than 100 members. And yet, over time, God honored not only the prayers of the saints who were there before I came, but the efforts that I made. And as I sought to follow the vision he had given me, I watched God take that and bless it and multiply it. And so I attribute what God has done at First Church in the 43 years to 3 things. The prayers of the saints. They would pray, God, send us the right man. Second thing I attribute it to is pastoral presence. In fact, I did we used to call it dissertation thesis. Now it's called final paper. My DMin on the two churches I pastored, and it was the presence of the pastor in the healing of a church. And I talked about how both of the churches I pastored were churches in need of healing, and God used pastoral presence to do that. The third thing is preaching, because you're not going to do much in the African American church without some preaching. There's got to be some preaching going on. So prayer of the saints in the pew, pastoral presence, and preaching. I believe, though, and to take my 3 P's juxtaposed to your 3 F's, that's what will get you through the fatigue and the fear and all the other issues that come into our lives.
And I think
frustration.
Absolutely. And I think that's why also when a pastor is no longer at a church, sometimes you never hear about that church anymore. And I'm not disparaging the successor by any means, but that it is the pastor who's the blessing for the congregation. And once that pastor is gone, if the replacement isn't right, then you say like, oh, you never hear some of these great churches, but the greatness of the church was also the pastor being used in God's hands to be a blessing to the people. The way a shepherd is a blessing to sheep.
To sheep. And again, I think we have to be willing to say that in a way that it does not sound as if we're taking glory to ourselves.
Not self-serving, but
it's helping our people understand the role, the unique role of the pastor, and why that office must be honored and appreciated and valued, because it is not just the catalyst, it's the hinge on which the door of ministry swings open and closed.
Take Paul out of the churches of the New Testament.
What you got?
And even though he's humble enough to say it's not I who lives but Christ, but at the same time, Paul is the one that's driving the growth into the Gentile world.
So when Paul was converted, was it that God spoke to and said, I want you to go down to a street called Straight. There's a man there by the name of Saul. And he said, was it Ananias?
Yeah, I think
he
so.
said, I've heard a lot about this dude. He's a bad dude. I'm not going.
You're right.
No, you go.
Yeah.
He's a chosen vessel. And I have already shown him the great things he must suffer for my sake. But coupled with that is the chosen vessel to do the great work that Paul did.
Yeah.
He was a chosen vessel.
Yeah. And when we talk about preaching, of course, we got to go back to one of the masters, our friend. And we heard him over the years, and I think I've said on the podcast, he did my revival in Elizabeth for about 12 or 15, maybe about 15 years, about 18 years there. And it was...
I tell you what I think about him so often. There's so much I grieve about his leaving us. And one of them is I can only imagine what his preaching would be like now. The power of it. In this particular moment, with all this going on within the context of our current contemporary condition, I would love to hear him addressing stuff.
Always addressed issues and was always prophetic.
Yes, sir.
Sermons were also full of grace, but that prophetic, what's on people's minds, except what's going on in their lives and in the life of the nation. And if we as Black preachers don't speak to that, then I don't think we have any business in the
No,
pulpit.
sir. And our counterparts in the predominantly white culture can't do it primarily because they've never had to do it.
Never had to.
The preaching of the African American preacher, from the moment we hit this soil of this continent, has had to of necessity be both bibline and prophetic, pastoral as well as contemporary. We've had to do it. We've had to help make sense out of what didn't make sense.
That didn't make sense. Yeah. And who can do that but the preacher? And that pulpit is still central in the life of Black people. I think someone said it on the podcast recently that we pastor not only the church, we pastor the community, even when they don't realize it.
Most times when they don't realize.
Most time when they don't realize it.
Yeah. I was saying that yesterday that our Catholic brothers understand it in a way we don't often. Catholic priests never talk about the membership of their churches. They talk about their parish. And the parish is the whole community.
Yeah.
You ask a Catholic priest, how many members do you have? He would probably be hard-pressed to tell you because they see the parish, which is what did John Wesley say? The world is my parish.
It's my parish, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's a different
It's about enlarging your
Yes,
vision.
sir. Yes, sir.
Talk about the Berean Fellowship and what you're doing. All of this, I think, the way you were mentored.
Yes, sir.
You are also mentoring.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
and what is that like? What are some of the challenges? And again, you're right. I think sometimes we can be. I think generation before us probably was critical of our generation.
Yes, sir.
But this generation, I always believe that God raises up preachers to address that generation.
Yes, sir.
And there's some great young voices.
Oh, God.
That are here. I think the culture gets in the way so much because you can't always separate the culture from the church and who we are as God's people.
Yes, sir.
We are God's people. We are a church. We are a worshiping congregation. We're not a theater.
That's right.
We're at a pulpit, not a stage.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so I recognize the temptation then to go after the culture, thinking that they can become more popular and also draw more people to the kingdom. It doesn't work that way all the time. So voices like ours, in terms of the Berean Fellowship, in terms of mentoring younger preachers, what are some of those challenges and joys that you are experiencing as you do for them what was done for you and what was done for me as well?
Yes, sir. I often tell people that because I was well fathered, one of the things I've always wanted to do was to be a father to others, because I know the blessing and the benefit of having a spiritual father who fathered me well. And part of that was yanking me in the nape of my neck when I would mess up, and even embarrassing me in public when I needed it, because those old men didn't take no tea for fever.
Right. And you listened to
you listened and you took it.
You're right. And you sat and listened. You didn't join the conversation,
sir,
unless you asked something.
Sir, yes,
but you're soaking it in. You don't need to talk. And you need to soak it in.
Yes, sir. And you imbibe that and you take it in and it becomes a part of you. So one of the things I always wanted to do, God has blessed me with sons and daughters pastoring all over. But I always wanted, and you will understand this because you pastored in Elizabeth, now in Philly. I pastored in Warren, now in Columbus. Booth pastored St. Paul, and then
In Westchester.
we both have pastored two churches, and all of us have pastored two churches in our ministries. In both of those churches, I was blessed to be full-time.
Yeah.
I've never had to be bivocational. And I know how almost every night of my pastoral life, I have gone to bed saying, I didn't do this. I didn't call that person. I didn't get by that hospital. And I'm full-time, which is why my heroes are bivocational pastors.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how they do it.
Don't know. And prepare sermons.
Spouses,
Spouses,
parents,
family,
pastors,
bills.
careers. I don't know how they do it. So I've always had this burden to come alongside them and help them, mentor them, encourage them, resource them, do whatever I could, because I know as a full-time pastor how I've often felt like I'm barely keeping up.
Yeah.
So I tell people, my heroes are not mega church superstar preachers. My heroes are men and women who are pulling it 40 hours a week somewhere.
Yeah.
And when I go do their anniversaries, I tell their churches, stop saying your pastor is part-time.
Right.
Your pastor has 2 full-time jobs.
Right.
Because if you're called a pastor, you can't be a part-time pastor.
He may be getting part-time paid.
Now, you be showing him he ain't getting part-time.
Right.
That's the same.
But they're full-time.
They're full-time, bro.
They're full-time.
And so Berean exists. Now, what has happened, you know what's happened, right, is we started out small church pastors, mid-size. But as we've grown, we've been in existence about 23 years. We get large church pastors now. That's fine. But I always remind our board of presbyters, let's never forget the original intent.
Right.
Let's never lose sight of what we believe was our true, genuine calling and purpose. So it's my joy to do that, and I've seen God bless. And again, and here's the thing, and I'm very careful in saying this, and I think you and I have to help them celebrate that some of them will never pastor large churches.
Yeah.
But it's all right.
It's all right.
It's all right.
And the model unfolding may be with churches closing and in decline. It just may be that there are going to be more and more pastors who cannot be sustained by church full-time.
Yes, sir.
With benefits and everything that they need that other people have.
Yes, sir.
And and not to feel guilty about having to divide, sir, that time that you're
Yes, sir.
that is, but they need to be empowered to understand that, God has still called you,
Yes, sir,
to this work.
And God is still using you. I remind young preachers a lot of these are middle-aged, older men and women who are looking back saying, man, did I waste my time? Did I have my ladder up against the wrong building all these years? Was I painting the wrong side of the barn? And I just remind them, Paul was a tent maker.
Yeah.
He was by vocation.
Bill Jones called the tent maker from
Tarsus. Listen,
I say Bill, I should say William Dr. Whit.
H. Beecher.
You're right, one of tent maker from Tarsus.
And we have to embrace that. Here's the other thing, and you and I could do a whole nother podcast on this. The other part of that is what you just said, the day and times in which we live, the economy in which we live. But even beyond that, the opportunity, what I call the opportunity zone in which we live, that our sons and daughters in ministry now, many of them not only coming out with MDivs and MATS degrees, many of them with MSWs or Masters of Education or Masters in Psychology or whatever, can go into the marketplace, in corporations, in government, in the academy, and pastor there Monday through Friday like they pastor on Sunday in their local congregation.
Mhm.
So they have to see it
Yeah.
as an extension of their ministry.
Yeah. And using the skills in the marketplace to make the church better,
Come on.
you know?
Come on. It's a two-way street.
Absolutely.
And it's almost an interchange.
Yeah.
It's almost as if one feeds the other.
Yeah.
So I take what I learned in the marketplace and bring what is often called best business practices, BBP. I bring that to the church. How to read a ledger, your P&L, your account payables, how to create a business plan for the church. I bring that to the church.
Yeah.
But then I take back to the marketplace integrity,
And right.
accountability,
Yes. Yes.
vision, spirituality that
Mhm.
talks about a relationship with God that impacts my life in real and visceral ways. Both benefit because I live in both of those worlds.
Both worlds. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Compatible. I guess
Uh,
they compatible and can feed off of each other. One of your books. Talk about your books, and books will live on.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
sermons live on, but not the preaching moment for us. They go when we go, but what you're leaving in terms of written, and I think in the Black community, Black church, Black pastors, preachers, we don't write enough because we think we don't have much to offer.
Yes, sir. Yes.
But you've given the Black church and others something with
Yes.
the books.
Yes, sir.
And
Dr. H.B. Charles in Jacksonville says that every sermon ought to have a purpose, and that when we're in our study, we ought to ask, what is the purpose of this sermon?
yeah,
I think books ought to have a purpose. Academicians, this. It's why I admire them. I admire men and women in the academy because they give their life to that. Many of them underpaid. You don't make a lot of money in the academy. And many of them write books. And here's what we know. Here's what we know. Well, not here's what we know. Here's what they know. They write those books and they know their reading audience is going to be about 150 people.
yeah,
They know that, right? They're never going to be on a New York Times bestseller list.
right.
But they write it for the academy. They write it for students who may be doing research. They write it for other academicians who may use it as part of a syllabus. They pour out their life to a limited audience. So those books serve a purpose. My books are written, here's my purpose. First of all, I want to write to people in clear, practical ways.
Mm-hmm.
I want to address issues, what you talked about.
Yeah.
Questions people are asking and areas where they're hurting. I want to take biblical principles and apply them to the everyday issues of life. And here's my fourth and probably the most important. And I want it to be easy to read.
Yeah.
Because I want them to be able to read it in a couple of days. I don't want them to pick it up and say, my God, it'll be the rest of my life reading this. I want them to be able to read it in a couple of days and remember points from it. So you're not going to get a lot of academic stuff in my books. You're going to get real life, practical, pound for pound on the ground. You can use it right now.
Which the academics can give us that. They give us that. But the needs of the people.
Pastoral. Yeah. That's what I write for.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Meeting people's needs. I always say you even have to prepare a sermon from the pulpit. From the pew. As if you're sitting in that pew. What questions is the pew asking?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What are the concerns? Because sometimes we think that people are on the same level of spirituality that we are, and obviously they're not. But what is what does it mean to preach to the needs of people?
Yes, sir.
We address, and you've done that for 40-some years.
Yes.
And again, the challenge is not that, I always say that anybody can come in our churches for revival and just kill the house, and that's what we want them to do, and they're good at doing that.
Yes, sir.
But when they go home, we're there Sunday after Sunday, decade after, in your case 42, my case 38, with the challenge of a fresh word every week. That my transition has been not just preaching to impress.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But to help.
Yes, sir.
To help people grow.
Yes, sir.
In Christ.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I tell people all the time, I bring preachers in and I want them to outpreach me.
Yeah.
Listen, I am the greatest cheerleader of a preacher on
You are.
Percy Church. I'm going to be helping you
You
because I want you to preach. And I've had guys say to me, man, you bring so-and-so in there. Why you do that? Hey, I said, listen to me. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. I said, if four sermons can take my church
to let them
have me to go.
They need to go.
Marry and bury and visit and counsel and preach to these people week after week. When the smoke clears and the dust settles from the fallout of the theophany, I put that joke on their plane on Saturday and Sunday morning. My folk are glad to hear their pastor.
Glad to hear the pastor.
Because we walk with them, bro.
Yeah. I heard Dr. William J. Shaw say, because he brings to his church, like in revivals, what we call hoopers, and he'll tell anybody he doesn't try to do what the gift is not his. And I said, well, he said he does that because his people deserve to hear other voices and other styles of preaching other than his own.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I agree with him wholeheartedly.
Because all of us have different gifts in terms of and it's all a part of the Black preaching tradition.
Yes, sir.
And to bring in, again, I had Charles Booth, and now by Friday night he'd pack out Union. We had chairs down the aisle, and he'd get through throwing his Bible and
taking off his
ties, and then his jacket. When guys said, glad he doesn't have any more points.
So do we do that striptease?
Right. Oh, right. So I put this dude on the plane, and I go back Sunday morning, still my pulpit, and people still want to hear the pastor.
Yes, sir.
Because of all the things that he or she does, other than preaching. And I say, even in terms of younger pastors, you can't go in a church and just think you're going to be the king overnight or queen. You got to build relationships. You got to introduce yourself to people through your preaching, and build those relationships. Bury the dead.
Yes, sir.
Love the people.
Yes, sir.
Dedicate to infants. Baptize.
Yes, sir.
They will always remember that. Even when you're gone, they will remember that you were. They may have a new pastor, sir,
and they will
love that new pastor, but they will also remember you.
Yes.
There are people to this day who remember Dr. Peace, who preceded me, was there 44 years, affectionately so, which I embrace.
Yes, sir.
I embrace because I'm a recipient of his legacy and the love people had for him.
Yes, sir. Moses Marquette preached. I remember the eulogy you preached for him about living and dying.
Yeah, living. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yep, you're right.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that. You're so right. I think it's unrealistic to expect that a man or woman can serve a people 44 years and you can just, like an eraser on a board, erase them.
Yeah.
Those men and women are in the hearts of those people, and they will never, ever forget their sojourn with them. And so when you go back to, I know you were back there to do Pastor Buffalo's service of triumph. Um, you you were their pastor.
Yeah.
You were there. And so much of what that church is became that under you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I sat in that pulpit to eulogize him, and my mind went back to when we built the church, and I remember we had to leave the old site while they were building the new site, and we rented a school 2 blocks away.
Yes, sir.
And I can remember that first Sunday in that school, and I'm looking. There's a stage and no pulpit. There are theater seats and no pews.
Yes, sir.
And I said to myself, what did you do to these people? You know, you have brought them away from the building they had worshiped in for like 75 years to this school. And I started like, will you keep raising money? Will you ever get them back? They're here in this school because of youth. And I'm sitting there in the pulpit, and the words come, uh, do not be afraid.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's the fear, but also the promise and the faith that you're not out here by yourself. And I think we all experience those moments, um, when we know that people are following us because we said follow,
Yes.
as we follow Christ, but follow us to these unknown places, unknown cities.
Yes, sir. I have often said, and I think you will agree, that there are certain relationships in life that are God ordained and given. Um, Parent child,
Mm-hmm.
especially mother child, there is
Yes,
no
no,
relationship
none.
like that. Spouse to spouse,
Yeah,
there is no relationship. If a man will leave his mother and father, cleave to his wife, they shall no longer be two, they become one. That is a mystical God moment.
mm-hmm.
And then I believe the third is pastor and people.
Yes, yes.
Doc, I don't believe, and I may be the only person in the world who believes this, that there is something divinely orchestrated and ordained that unites a pastor and a people together.
Yeah,
It's why they'll follow you.
yeah, yeah,
It's why they'll love you.
yeah,
Because it's the same way a parent with a child or a spouse with a spouse. You can't explain it
yeah.
any other way other than that's God's doing.
Yeah.
That's God's doing. And I don't think we always appreciate that.
I don't think we do. I don't
S-
think we I don't think we do. I don't think we do. Well, my friend,
Yes.
this has been a blessing.
Wow.
Blessing to me, blessing to our audience. Um, good to see you again.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna do what we said.
I'm gonna
We
do it.
we're at an age now, and it's a whole network of us. We may not always be as close to each other, but we know each other
Yes, sir.
through our friend.
Yes.
And we become friends. We need to find a way to fellowship. I think that's missing with other younger generations. The fellowship of preachers. We talked about it. That relationship. We know each other. We know what we're going through, and we gonna have to make that happen. But
Yeah, yeah.
I certainly want to thank our good friend and my brother, Bishop Timothy Clarke, for thanks for telling us how you were named too. That's for being with us on our podcast, and blessings to you and your ministry and family.
Right.
If today's conversation has added value to your ministry, be sure to subscribe to the Ministry Exchange so that you will not miss any of these episodes. And please stay connected to us on social media at Ministry Forward for more insight and more conversation. Uh, Thank you so much, and may the Lord bless you.